Today we're gonna do story time with Frugal Tiger. Me being down over $1 million in Palantir stock. I wanna talk about really fast how I got here. I have not been investing so much in the stock market over the last 9 to 10 months. I had a feeling that the market was overvalued and I was trimming most of my positions, most of them being at this point S&P, QQQ, things like that. But I was still looking for an investment because I was super worried that the market was going to continue to rip higher and rip higher without me. After doing a lot of research, I had made a choice in purchasing Palantir stock. And I'll tell you guys right off the bat why. How did I even know about this company? How was I even introduced to it? Why did I even bother looking at the fundamentals? I'm not a fundamental investor, I'm a trader. I'll tell you guys a story. So I actually applied to work at Palantir. My entire bankroll in terms of trading stocks was a combination of two things. Either working a tech job or day trading full time. And Palantir was a ginormous name in the industry, among other programmers. Everyone knew that it is harder to get a job in Palantir than it was even in Google. Their technical screening process is the most rigorous. I did not even pass the first round of tech screening with Palantir. I remember seeing an email, hey, thank you for your application. Go fuck yourself. But I knew that the people who worked there were very passionate about the work they were doing, and I knew that they were building probably next level products based on the talent pool that they were able to get. You know, you can kind of gauge a place just by the people, the kind of culture that they try to employ and things like that. And the fact that they have the money to pay all these people good salaries, RSU or restricted stock units, which are essentially options contracts for insiders of the company. Back in 2019 or 2020, after their IPO, I really started to do a lot more fundamental research. And that's when I started piling into Palantir. I started buying Palantir not just for day trades anymore, but to hold some exposure overnight. It was right around $14 or $15 a share when Palantir was around that price, where I had looked at the fundamentals and I decided that this was the company that I was going to start buying. Most of my exposure to the S&P was now done. I needed one stock that I was going to put a lot of exposure to. And to hedge the risk of that stock, I was going to be ready to short S&P futures in the case of a market crash, or Nasdaq futures in the case of a market crash, to hedge off my risk. I wasn't going to put all my money in Palantir. My goal was somewhere between 25 to 30%. That was my ballpark marker if I got good prices. I was going to dollar cost average. Right around 20, it kept running higher and higher for the longest time. It had a lot of retail speculation, but unlike these other bullshit companies like Space, like Clove, like Wish, this company's fundamentals were legit. Like their revenue growth, look at their revenue growth from 2019 till now. It's like over $1 billion now. Is it like a couple $100 million in 2019? That is insane revenue growth. They're not a meme stock like a lot of people say. So I had decided that in order to make up for the fact that I would not have so much money in the S&P, QQQ, whatever, I was gonna keep a relatively abnormal size exposure to one stock for me in the long term, which is very different than how I normally trade. I usually buy index funds like VOO, SPY, QQQ, stuff like that as my long-term investment. That way I can really just stay kind of focused on day trading. If you take a look at Palantir stock, it has plummeted from that point in time. The stock essentially kept dropping for a wide variety of different reasons. I think the market just basically crashed all of these type of speculative names. The tape was looking very weak in Palantir stock from about 26, but I chose not to sell it at 26. It looked like it wanted to go lower because I kept saying to myself, it's a long-term investment. Why the obsession with long-term investment? And I want to explain to you guys something that is very crucial to my thought process here of long-term investment. And that is, when you trade short-term, you're always hit with short-term capital gains. I am going to be paying multiple six figures in taxes for my performance in 2021. As a short-term day trader, everything that I make money on, I pay taxes at the normal tax rate, whatever it is. It's like, I think it's like 37, 38%. I'll try to correct that for the course of this video. I'm at the max tax rate. Part of the benefit of being a long-term investor, someone not weaving in and out of Palantir stock, as long as I hold it for 1 year, I get the lower tax rate, which will, for me, be 20%. So that was kind of why I was obsessed with just maintaining the position and not trimming it, because I did not want to lose my long-term tax status. I chose the dollar cost average on these dips. It's left me with a $1 million loss that is going to take me some time to recover from. And honestly, if you guys want to know the truth, I think this current crash that we have, crash or whatever, I don't really call it a crash. I don't think the market has crashed, but Palantir stock has. A lot of small cap stocks have basically crashed. It's going to probably be priced low for some time now until the market can figure out its footing. And in that time, I'm stuck holding a pretty large bag. I now want to talk about quickly what I should have been doing. You guys got the idea that, hey, part of this was I wanted a long-term investment. I was a little overconfident and cocky about being able to short sell S&P futures against Palantir to reduce some of my losses in Palantir. But this approach had not worked as well as I would have liked, mainly because S&P, if you look at it, it's down, what, 17, 18%. Palantir is down, it's down 66% from my cost basis. My cost basis is like it's almost $17 a share. I feel like there's some important learning lessons here, and I want to go over that with you. I think the most important one is the fact that, yes, I kept saying this is a long-term trade for me, and eventually you can make it into a long-term investment if everything holds up. But when the tape is weak, I should have been trying to do one of two things. I should have been recycling out of my position, and what I mean by recycling is selling Palantir, even if I had to sell it at a loss at, $17, $18 a share. The tape was still weak. I should have been looking to rebuy those shares that I just sold even lower. Or B, I should have been shorting some of Palantir stock in another account to offset my losses in my long-term investment. That way I still keep my long-term trading status, but I also protect myself on the obvious weakness that was Palantir stock during this time. Yeah, I mean, those were two very big mistakes. Part of my problem was I was just obsessed with this long-term capital gains. I had two friends, two people I know very closely. One of them sold Tesla stock, got long-term capital gains treatment on that Tesla sale, and barely had to pay any taxes, versus myself, I'm cutting six-figure checks in taxes on every winning year that I have. I feel like I learned a very valuable lesson, which is you're paying taxes because you're earning a lot of money. Right now, I'm in the scenario where I'm not paying taxes because I'm taking a bath on Palantir shares. I should have known to basically sell it and recycle back in at a later time, or short it. And the third mistake is dollar cost averaging. This was stupid. In hindsight, I was dollar cost averaging on the way up. I was dollar cost averaging on the way down. It honestly made no sense. I should have waited for a time that it went to turn around, where it was obvious that there was buying demand back again in Palantir before I started dollar cost averaging. My effective hedge of market timing and shorting the S&P, I made about $280,000 short selling S&P futures over the course of 5 to 6 months. And that really didn't hedge my losses in Palantir very much. And I got a little chicken scared of shorting the S&P. Part of it is because you guys remember in 2020, I got my face ripped off shorting the market at the wrong time. So I don't think I could do it in the level of size that I needed to. B, even this year, before I got my last round of shorting going, which is like shorting from 4,600, covering back around 4,100, obviously covering in between many times, but that was like the overall range that was able to be played, S&P from 4,600 to 4,100. I didn't do that with enough size. I probably should have picked a Nasdaq index rather than the S&P index. I just have a slightly harder time reading the intraday tape in regards to scalping Nasdaq futures compared to S&P futures, which is why I chose them. Yeah, the overall approach did not really work out for me. I've now experienced the largest single most devastating loss I've ever had. Now, normally I would say definitely dollar cost average if you know an investment is good, but you also have to take it from my perspective. I saw Alex Karp on right after earnings where he was talking to someone from CNBC, and he sounded so out of it. He sounded more like a philosopher than he did like someone who's business minded. Like his head was all in theory land, like talking about this and that, completely unrelated to Palantir stock. Mr. Karp, you're bleeding shareholder money. I mean, try to make something out of this. You know, try to sell Palantir. It almost seemed like he was so arrogant and narcissistic that he did not. It was almost as if he didn't care what Wall Street thought about Palantir, because Palantir is so big it doesn't need Wall Street. And that's not correct. If you want to build anything in life, you need money, whether you're an individual person or you're a business like Palantir. So if he can gain Wall Street support, he will have easy access to money for the rest of his life. They'll give him good ratings on his bonds. They might start buying up his stock. So when he goes to sell stock to finance more Palantir products, there's more to finance. I was really shaken by Alex Karp's interview. And I wasn't even shaken until a couple days later. The stock price of Palantir dropped to about $6.81. I bought more shares around $7, and I sold them the very next day into a very large rally around $8.30. So I am deciding temporarily, although I think Palantir should still be a good investment on numbers, you don't know if they're going to be able to execute, especially when Alex Karp does an interview where I never did shrooms before, but I'm pretty sure I would sound like that if I was on shrooms. Like I'm talking to someone about just theory and philosophy rather than Palantir. Like I'm pretty sure that's how I would sound like if I was on shrooms. So the good news for me though is, what am I doing now is there's a lot of stocks that have fallen. Palantir is one of the stocks that have fallen a lot. I started buying other things for the first time in a very long time because I have this huge cash pile I now need to store. I now need to figure out if they're good investments for. So I am going very slow with this because I don't think this crash is done. Started dollar cost averaging into Square. There's a bunch of different names. Square, Roku, Netflix, Facebook. A lot of things have come down. There's a lot of opportunity now where I didn't see anything a few months back. In doing that, yes, I'm not dollar cost averaging into Palantir until this idiot, okay, I didn't call Alex Karp an idiot, until he realizes he needs Wall Street's help. I don't like Wall Street either, but those people will help you finance your future projects. And it's very beneficial to get on their good side for the long-term success of Palantir. It almost feels like he's just totally disrespecting Wall Street. Yeah, I started dollar cost averaging into names that I feel like are overly beaten up. I might do another video on that. This is not the video for that. But that's how I'm playing it. At one point, I thought Palantir the risk-reward ratio was worth it. I definitely think it's worth it at this price. I just have too much exposure. And I want to spread out my new money onto other things that have fallen because I see other opportunities now in the market, whereas a few months ago, I did not. Anyway, if you're experiencing a lot of losses in this stock market, don't freak out. Keep your head calm. Get off of, if you're on margin right now, get off of it. I think we can end up going lower, but this is not the video for that. This is a video about how you handle $1 million loss gracefully, or in a lot of people's cases, if you lose a very, very large chunk of money unexpectedly, you got to handle that gracefully. I still have both of my arms. I got both of my legs. I got my eyesight. I have some of my hair. I cover the rest of this with this nice cap. Till next time, once again, as always, don't go broke. Cathie Wood had announced that she was buying a lot of Palantir, which is probably the first sign that I should have gotten the fuck out of Palantir stock. I just want the money, 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 money.